Hey, it's Mazzy. It's Mazel. This was actually a gift. And I look like a friggin' idiot with this hat. So this is for effect here. This is a video on artists who went disco. Now, let me start here. Big influence, two channels. A channel that's fairly new to me in the last several months now, and I'm going to put links below to these two. And Nadine out of souldisco.de, she's in Deutschland, a German woman whose channel really concentrates on disco and soul music, and there aren't a lot of those that I know about. So if you're into that, check that out. And also to my good friend, I consider my good friend in Birmingham, England, John 6-inch pianist, who is all R&B, soul, mostly, not always, but he knows more about R&B music, soul music, Motown, Stax. Just a great channel, great guy, and a wealth of knowledge. I've been thinking about doing this video for a while, and I'm going to go through really fast a crap load of records of artists in the 70s and 80s, and maybe a little before, a little after, who crossed over and did some dance and soul and disco records, and who are not black artists, that's not their main genre. Some did it better than others. Some did it that was the trend. As you know, I worked in the record business during that disco period where all these, white guys would burn disco. Disco sucks. The rock and rollers hated the whole disco thing. And I'm not going to tell you the history of disco coming out of the club scene, the black scene, the gay scene. I went to disco and dance clubs. And again, some artists did it better than others. And let's just see how this goes. Some dipped their toes in it, and some went all in to various degrees of success. Now, I couldn't not talk about the British artists from Manchester that they emigrated to Australia, came back, and of course the Bee Gees. And everybody knows the Bee Gees, whether you like them or not, because of Saturday Night Fever. They really went all in on dance music and soul music and disco to some extent on main course. Now, I'm not necessarily showing every single album by artists, and I probably will miss some. So you're going to tell me the ones I miss, and that's fine. I appreciate that. But main course, this is their fully dance records. Nights on Broadway, Jive Talkin'. I mean, this was all over the dance club. And of course, after Saturday Night Fever, Bee Gees' spirits having flown. I love the song Tragedy on here. That's such a great song. I mean, the whole idea of the downbeat, just a 4/4 beat on these songs, and then of course we got all these 12-inch disco mixes and remixes and remixers taking songs and remixing them again, so we'd buy them on 12 inches and singles and all along, just various variations of things. Of course, Elton John went all in for a while. Two songs in here I'm going to shout out. Don't Go Breaking My Heart with Kiki D. Very danceable song. And, Island Girl as well on here. Let's see. Philadelphia Freedom. Totally that Philly sound, horns and all, orchestration. Elton John went all into it. Very, very influential, but, influenced by these artists. Now, an album that was pretty much in it from the beginning, did a lot of dance records in their pop sensibilities and their over-the-top pop records, and I love is Abba. And of course, Voulez-Vous is their most nightclubby of all of them. But you could take dance and disco stuff on every single record they made. Voulez-Vous. Okay, I had a brain freeze. I was so excited. Promo copy. Love Abba. That was okay. Now, this is where it gets a little more cringe-worthy, and some people will like these songs, but some of the 60s artists did it in a way that wasn't as successful, in my opinion. Paul McCartney, Daytime, Nighttime, Suffering was the B-side. here, but Good Night Tonight. Now, when you play this now, the extended mix, this is the White Promo disco single. That was a whole rage, sending these disco singles to clubs and DJs to get them played, and a lot of them did. And you get Paul McCartney's great bass playing and the remixed versions of this. We got the short version at 4 minutes. We got the 7 minutes. You know, the whole thing is when you're on the dance floor, you don't want to stop at 4 minutes. You want to go all in. Now, I'm not going to talk about the Donna Summers of the world and all these great, you know, Gloria Gaynors and all the great disco artists, depending on your point of view. I'm not going to even show Rod Stewart, Do You Think I'm Sexy? Because I don't have any of that period. I got off the Rod Stewart bus at that record. But Paul McCartney here. Paul McCartney went into it and dipped into it. In this one, I think he's more successful. At least he's experimental. In 1980, Paul McCartney 2, Temporary Secretary. You know, very influenced by Kraftwerk and electronica scene and Georgia Moroder. There's some gems on this record. A lot of people enjoy this record now more than they did in the past. Coming Up was very dancey. I think people liked the live version on the 7-inch single that came with this at the time. But Temporary Secretary, and you know, he did a lot of remixed 12 inches albums. There's one that's what it goes on for, was it 15 minutes? Check Your Machine, Check My Machine. Where he's doing an experiment. And of course, the debacle with Michael Jackson, Say, so dancey, so upfront, and what a shit show this was. But it was a huge hit, so who am I to say and to be a judge of an artist's music? Here's another version of that Say. This one, a lot of remixes of, produced by John Jellybean Benitez. He was a very big in the remixed dance disco scene. There are a lot of great post remix producers who came out of this scene as well, but that's for another day. Even the Quiet One got into it a little bit. Teardrops on here is so dancey, so upbeat. It's a great song, and this opens up side 2, Teardrops. So everyone did sort of a dance disco-esque. Now it's not all disco. Sometimes it's just a dance beat. You gotta move, you gotta shake, you gotta move. But you know who got into the act too, since we might as well go through all the gents. Ringo the Fourth, disco all through this record. Can she do it like she dances? You know, there's a few of them. She actually does a good version, interesting version of Sneakin' Sally's to the Alley, a Little Feat song. But Robert Palmer did the best version. Now, Robert Palmer I did not include either. And I'm not including like later bands beyond the 80s into the 90s, because the whole dance upbeat thing really got mishmashed with even past post-punk bands. They were very dance beatable. I'm not including those. Only if they started out doing something else and all of a sudden they discovered disco and they discovered dance music. Now, this, the whole Stars on 45 thing was such a shit show where you get snippets of songs and you have the same beat for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 16 hours, and you have these hit singles mixed together or dissolving into each other. And this Stars on 45 is produced in 1981. Of course, side 1 is a Beatle version, and it basically goes with No Reply, I'll Be Back, Drive My Car, the actual Beatle songs with that disco beat, you know? Stars on 45, performed by the Stars on 45. What a shit show this. People were burning this before they even bought this record. I mean, I think it was less controversial, John Lennon talking about Jesus. Now, this is a record that has a lot of sentimental value, and to me, it's one of the most successful of the Beatle family. And this is the Yoko Ono Walking on Thin Ice. On the emotional side, when John Lennon was gunned down in front of the Dakota in 1980, in his hand or in his pocket, he had a cassette of the final mix of this. They finished the mix in the studio of this, and this is the long version. What a great Yoko's best song. Yoko had a lot of records that were remixed and on the dance club floor in the 80s and 90s and the 2000s beyond. She was the dance people loved Yoko Ono and loved her work, but this one is amazing. The guitar bits that John Lennon does on this. If you like great guitar, you halfway through all the way through the song, John's guitar playing is just ravaged. It's so sad to think what could have come with John Lennon if he would really let his freak flag, his dancing out there experimental stuff, go more into a little bit of this. This is an amazing single. This best song, and this is I think this has a long version. Yoko also, I didn't pull here, but when I first got the 12-inch when Double Fantasy came out of the song Starting Over, the B-side Kiss 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 I loved it better. That explodes. The bass, the drums in that song by Yoko, Kiss Kiss Kiss, seriously is a favorite of mine. Now, not everyone could pull it off, but Bob Ezrin goes into Pink Floyd and gives them a friggin' dance record with "We Don't Need No Education." Boom, boom, boom. And those of you who say you hate disco, this is a friggin' disco song. Not a lot of it on the whole album, but "We don't need no thought control." Disco, The Wall, Pink Floyd, Bob Ezrin production. Come on, let's get them a hit. We need to get Pink Floyd a hit. Now, David Bowie has got into, dabbled into soul music and R&B a long time. Of course, Young Americans right away. On the slow side, Fascination, but Young Americans is so soulful and the great arrangement. And of course, Fame, co-written with John Lennon, and John Lennon's vocal on that. I wish it was mixed up more. I wish they did more together. Is it any wonder? You hear John's voice, and it just brings a chill to you. What a great dance song. John Lennon would have done more, I think, in this genre a little bit, because he's sort of dipped his toes in it on it. But obviously, this album, a bunch of Station to Station, TVC 15. But you can't argue. Let's Dance, produced by Niles Rodgers, and this one's all over the dance floor. This was the hit Bowie wanted and needed at this time, this period in time. Some people, there's a whole thing with these artists. How many of you probably yelled out, "Sell out" to some of these people? Sell out. They've gone disco. They hated that. Now, the Rolling Stones, okay. Sell out, 12-inch single. Miss You. That beat, right? Charlie Watts, was he falling asleep there? It sounds great, though. 12-inch single mix. Is this the Miss You? Let's see. It's a 12-inch. Is it 45 RPM? Faraway Eyes, that's the country song. But come on, Rolling Stones, they were so into it. They did a lot of dance stuff. Hey Negrita, they get into the reggae thing. As much as a trendsetter that Mick Jagger was, he was also a follower. So there you go. Now, Steve Miller Band, later I could have pulled Abracadabra. That's such a dancey song. But one of the original members of Steve Miller Band from Texas with Steve Miller was Boz Scaggs. And of course, this is a wonderful album. The second cover is the better cover. This is the original Anna Leibovitz Bad Photograph. But Johnny Bristol produced it. It's dancey, it's soulful, slow dance. You make it hard to say no. So, that Philly sound is so great. He does a couple of, Hercules is also a great dance song. But of course, he follows it up with his biggest record ever. And almost, I'm not going to say destroyed his career, but after that, it's just how do you follow up? This is a great record. Lido Shuffle. This is Soaked Degrees, Boz Scaggs, with a great photograph by Moishe Braca, the great photographer who did a lot of album covers at the time. Lowdown, Lido Shuffle. What Do You Want the Girl to Do? The Alan Toussaint song. Great record, great dance record. More of the dance and the soulful Philly sound than disco. But, this crosses over. Now, even one of the greatest iconic lyricists, writers of L.A., the noir dark side of Los Angeles, Warren Zevon does it with Nighttime at the Switchin' Yard. Lawyers, Guns, and Money too, but Nighttime at the Switching Yard, which opens up side 2. And there was a 12-inch I No Longer Have single remix of that. He did several remix dance things around that time. When you're in that pocket, the record companies want these disco dance. We want a dance mix for the clubs, for radio. We want that mix, and they got it with Nighttime at the Switching Yard. What a fun song. At the time, I was a little skeptical too. I was not all in on disco, but I didn't mind it as much as some, and now I enjoy it even more. And I actually have the 6LP the 6LP Madonna box showing up with all her disco mixes. I think it's maybe today or tomorrow. It's coming. Now, okay. One of these nights. Eagles. The Boss did it. The Boss did it. Dancing in the Dark. Even put the word dancing. Different mixes. This has the blaster mix. The blaster mix. Pump up the bass. Pump up the bass. Wow, the blaster mix. I mean, and that synthesizer right in 1984. This has the blaster mix, 6 minutes. Dance in the Dark, a radio mix, 4 minutes, 50 seconds. And the dub. You know the dub. That's the version without lyrics. That's the dub. 5 minutes, 30 seconds. The Boss. Bruce Springsteen. Disco. Dancy. All right. Now, Roxy Music. They did a lot of stuff in that kind of dance thing. You could say Love is a Drug on Siren is a great song. I like this record. I know it doesn't get as much love. It's one of their slick period just before Siren, right? But In the Midnight Hour on here, and their version of 8 Miles High, stupendous cover version. And Brian Ferry's solo version, he was all in on the dancing, the in crowd. I'm with him in the in crowd. Mazzy, don't do, put that away later. I have an audience. You don't put records away. Don't you hate when people make these videos and you're sitting there putting the record away instead of talking? Okay, the Kinks. Okay, come on. Low budget. Dance. Ray Davis. Superman. I do have a 12-inch. I didn't pull that. Of Superman. Wish I Could Fly like Superman. Catch Me, I'm Falling. But Superman, what a dance song. Then they did the dance song. What's the dance song? I do have that on. Okay, I didn't pull that 12-inch. But they have a dance song, a bunch of dance songs. They went 79, 80, 81. Kinks, they go disco. Come on. Ray goes disco. Everyone wanted to sell records. Now, ELO went dancing before they even went dancing. Going back to Showdown on, is it ELO 3? Third day? 3? When they do, that's the song where Jeff Lynne rips off Gladys Knight and the Pips, rips off Heard It Through the Grapevine with Showdown. Showdown is Heard It Through the Grapevine reworked by Jeff Lynne. Now, I could have put, I thought about pulling Creedence Clearwater 1968, Heard It Through the Grapevine, but that's just covering the song. There's a beat to it, but that's not what this is about. But he did it so much. I mean, he was all in on dancing. Everything is overproduced. I love ELO. I love them. But this is probably the one that's more disco. Of course, they did the Xanadu soundtrack. Jeff Lynne wrote a lot of the songs, most of the songs on that. God, is Knight Rider on it? Knight Rider. Oh, Don't Bring Me Down, Down. Anyway, you guys know more than I know sometimes. A lot. Okay. I'm going to put these down. Oh. Now, of course, The Clash. The Magnificent Seven. There was a remix, 12-inch expanded of that. Of course, the 3-record Sandinista. A lot of dub stuff. I think this is great as a 3-record set. I'm glad it wasn't whittled down to 2 or 1 because is it filler? It's an ambiance. It makes the record really interesting. But of course, Magnificent Seven on here. And there's some other things on here, but they're totally disco, totally danceable, Pete Townsend, he commercialized, sells everything. We got Let My Love Open the Door. So danceable, right? Okay. Even Rough Boys to a point. Devo did it, but they did it best here with Whip It. Of course, they had a whole dance sound, a very electronic sound all the way through. But Whip It good. Now, this is, you could almost pull every album. You could pull, this is Talking Heads, okay? You could pull it from the beginning. Psycho Killer, boom, qu'est-ce que c'est, and it's all danceable. They had so much danceable records, but I'd say they're one of the more successful because they didn't just jump on the bandwagon. David Byrne and Chris Frantz and Tina Weymouth and Jerry Harrison really got into the whole beats, African beats, dance beats, remixes, Slippery People, making Flippy Floppy. We love making Flippy Floppy. And of course, this record, probably one of their most, but all their records in this, all their records have a dance feel to it, have a really rhythmic feel. So it's not a negative thing when they merge it right. It's when they add that beat just for the sake of adding the beat to do a song like Miss You or the Rolling Stones. And I like Miss You, but there is that. Now, coming from New Wave and very soon into your career doing dance stuff, and of course on here, Heart of Glass, talk about a disco hit and a disco song. And what can I say there, right? And then, of course, the electronic-y more album with her rap song, Rapture. And great. I mean, Blondie. How can you not like Blondie? And you just love this little petite of a white girl singing these songs and the band. And they did it. It works. They rocked it. They rocked this music. Now, there's a lot of disco that is also considered parody, and a lot of these bands were doing a parody thing. You got Shake Your Booty, Frank Zappa. You know, he had a certain snarky attitude, like almost nose down, thumbing his nose at it. But, you know, Jewish Princess, but Dancing Fool. I mean, he could do it right, and he could do it fun, and he had a good time with it, and he had some hits with it. So this is one of his bigger hits, Shake Your Booty, which obviously the play on words is pretty fun, but, you know, right? Him and Moon Unit and the Zappa family doing some cool stuff. Now, they always had a beat and a dance beat in their middle period around Asia. Of course, Gaucho was probably their most danceable disco, and not all the way through, but Steely Dan, got to throw them in the mix here. 10cc, now this isn't exactly disco, but Dreadlock Holiday has that reggae-ish pop, that white man's reggae. Bloody Tourist, great album. This is when they were half 10cc, so 5C I would suspect would be their names here. It should be their names. But Dreadlock Holiday is a great reggae-infused pop song with that dance beat. It's such, you know the song. The Bard. Can the Bard do disco? Dancey somewhat. We have on here, let's see, what do we have? Political World. Everything is Broken. Everything is Broken. Produced by Daniel Lanois. Bob Dylan. Even Bob Dylan couldn't get away from making a dance record. Now, I would argue this is a successful version. This is the album that Columbia wouldn't put out. They didn't get what it was about. Originally only came out in Canada. Probably in Europe too, I think. Columbia passed on it, but then it came back. And opening up with Dance Me to the End of Love. It has that electronic sound, that keyboard sound, a lot less of the guitar-based folky stuff. He's crossing over into a keyboard thing. But that's become one of his biggest hits. And of course, on this album, which is not disco at all, but that one little song that's become an iconic piece of music, Hallelujah, is on here. Not dancey at all, but every song on here is great. If It Be Your Will, not danceable, but still, I just had to throw that out. We're getting down to the end here, so don't worry. Iggy Pop, blah, blah, blah. Real wild child. She's a real wild. I mean, the dancing on this is great. Cry for Love also. What a great record. Iggy Pop. Everyone was doing dance records. Of course, Iggy and Bowie. Bowie, Iggy. Iggy, Bowie. You know how that goes. Okay. One of my wankers, is this my only wanker in this video? I'm not even talking about the Phil Collins. I didn't even include Peter Gabriel. He totally went, digging in the dirt and what's the big hit he did on So? Anyway, Peter Gabriel went total danceable too, and I didn't pull his records. But the wanker on here, I love Van Morrison. I like this record too. He adds this electronic thing to it a little bit. 1978, more synthesizers, more dance, Wavelength. And there was a longer remix of Wavelength available somewhere on a 12-inch that Warner Brothers put out. Of course, they includes the single Wavelength. Promo copy, Wavelength, Van Morrison. I can't even see Van Morrison dancing, although I was at the last waltz, and he did do that kick-up dance in those tight leotard. What was he wearing in that? And then I'm going to end up with the band that people have no clue this band did some disco danceable records and a song. Maybe it's one song. I was trying to think, but let's close out with Led Zeppelin. This is In Through the Outdoor, and the song that opens up on side 2 is Carousel Alhambra. Carousel Alhambra goes into several different sections, but it's got a dance beat to it. Led Zeppelin, come on, John Bonham and Jimmy Page and Robert Plant and the bass player. What's Led Zeppelin dance? So that is my danceable beat. That's my danceable disco record. So Mazzy loves you, and Mazel Tov to you, and thanks for watching. What other sort of 60s, 70s white bands try to do the disco thing? Did it? There's others. I'm sure I forgot so many. I was researching this for about a week now, or thinking about it, and I just had to do it. So Mazzy loves you. I'm a dancing fool.